start recording. All right. So, which is also known as oratory, we go back, as always, to ancient Greece. So back in the day, public speaking was used as a form of persuasion for citizens to transmit information, whether it be telling a story, motivating people to act, or encouraging people. This type of speech is deliberately structured with three general purposes: to inform, to persuade, and to entertain. Every single speech event involves advancing or advocating for an overall argument. As a result, understanding Aristotle's three modes or appeals of persuasion is a solid starting point for us. Since this is a boot camp, I will be doing a quick review of all these appeals. So the three modes of persuasion are ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, or ethical appeal, establishes credibility by convincing the audience on the character of the speaker, which in this case is you. Ethos is accomplished through delivery and use of evidence in the speech. Pathos appeals to the emotions of the audience, such as including a relevant narrative in your speech to humanize the content and establish relatability. Logos is persuasion through the use of reason or logic, often manifesting itself as solid argumentation and sourcing throughout the speech. Again, all speech events use ethos, pathos, and logos to effectively communicate their message to the audience. So what is competitive speech exactly then? Competitive speech takes public speaking and achievement and smushes them together into an extracurricular that allows you to practice your oratory skills to a live audience of your peers in a setting where you are able to receive feedback from the judges in your room. Also, my personal favorite reason to do speech and debate is that you get to wear snazzy suits and feel like a business person on their way to work. I mean, hello, who doesn't like feeling and looking good? That's just my personal favorite though. Competitive speech has multiple events that are centered on different methods of speech. In the next couple of slides, I'll be going over the different speech events so you know what they are soon. There are different levels of competition. So league tournaments are our local tournaments focused around high schools in the area. So for us, we are in the Capital Valley Forensic League, which stands for CVFL. And basically that includes areas like Carmichael, Elk Grove, the Sacramento Valley region, and Davis, of course. There are also national circuit invitationals that are bigger and obviously involve high schools all across the US. So for example, Berkeley. Berkeley is a invitational that we go to that is on the national circuit. And so people from all over the US are able to come to UC Berkeley and compete together. The National Speech and Debate Association, or NSDA, is the main body that governs most of what goes on in the middle school and high school forensics community. I'm not talking about the police crime investigative forensics, but speech forensics. According to the American Forensic Association, forensic speech is the study and practice of public speaking and debate. And the National Speech and Debate Tournament, hosted by NSDA, is one of, if not the largest academic tournaments in the world. So this activity not only looks good on your resume if you do well in it, but is also a fun way to get to know other people your age in an academically rigorous environment. So now I'll be going over how rounds and tournaments usually work, pretending as if COVID-19 didn't really exist and we aren't forced to go to online tournaments, as I think you all should know how tournaments usually should look like. For the most part, everything that I'll be talking about is the same for online tournaments, just that now you'll be doing everything on a Zoom call and online instead. Okay, let's get into it. So the number of speech rounds vary depending on the size of tournaments, but the general structure is that there are 3 rounds of prelims followed by breaks into finals. At larger invites, there are semifinals and even quarterfinals before the final round. So at leagues, there are usually just 3 prelims, and 1 break into finals. At invites, there are usually semifinals, and if it's a really big tournament, there will be quarterfinals as well. So, for example, my experience at Stanford this year in OI, or oratorical interpretation, was you had 3 prelims and 1 semis round on Saturday at the hotel. And then if you were lucky enough to make it to finals, then you would be able to go to finals on Sunday. Most invites go on for multiple days, typically starting after school in the afternoon on Friday and going on until Sunday evening. For speech kids, our prelim rounds actually begin on Saturday, but we sometimes leave on Friday afternoon or Saturday morning at like 5, 6, or 7 a.m. in order to get to our tournaments on time at 8 a.m. Now, obviously, things will be different this year thanks to COVID-19. So for those interested in joining the team this year with online schooling, we aren't too sure how excusing ourselves for stuff will work, but rest assured that Fergie, our other coach, will excuse us for any tournament that you want to attend. Invites are always on the weekend for us and typically last all weekend long. So most of the important invites are actually in the spring season. And so when things get really busy, you could be attending tournaments every single weekend for like 7 to 8 weeks in a row. Now, it's not mandatory to attend all the tournaments offered by our school, but the more tourneys you go to, the more feedback and experience you get. And that is so important to do. Like, the effects of simply attending one round are so big. When I was first starting out, I could go into my first round and be like an absolute wreck. I would be so nervous, I would forget my speech, etc. And but in that 1 hour break before my next round began, I would be able to learn exactly what I had to do, and I would improve my performance by a lot. So a lot of speech is intuitive in that way. You're always improving. Always. You don't even have to do well. Simply going and competing will give you the experience necessary to grow and excel for your next performance. Now, there are usually 6 to 7 competitors in your room per round, and they will be sitting in the desks or nowadays on the Zoom call while you stand at the front of the classroom, or nowadays in front of your computer. There will be 1 judge for your prelim rounds and 2 or more judges in the final rounds. Usually there are 3 judges at most invites I've been to, but I have been to some tournaments where there are 2 judges for quarters or semi rounds, or up to even 6 or 7 judges in the final round, like it was for me at Stanford. So there's an incentive to do well and break, because that means you're able to receive more feedback from judges, although half of the time they aren't really that helpful, if I'm being honest, but they're still good. It's good for motivation. So I'm going to go over some speech and debate terms that you should know. This kind of applies to both speech and debate, but there are some terms that are mostly used in speech. So breaking, the act of breaking is advancing on to finals. So for example, say I found out I made it to quarterfinals at James Logan. That's one of the biggest tournaments on biggest invites on the West Coast. I can say, oh, I broke into quarterfinals. And if I do well enough in quarterfinals and I advance to semis, I could also say, oh, I broke into semifinals, and so on and so on. Postings are how we find out what room we are supposed to go to for our rounds. And usually everybody waits in the cafeteria or NPR of the school the tournament is hosted at. And the postings for every event are lined up on like one entire wall of the room via masking tape. It's literally just a piece of paper with your name, competitor code, and room assignment. For bigger tournaments, the postings will be up on a website called tabroom.com. That's TABROOM.com, which is like the official host website of every speech and debate tournament going on in the US at the time. So for example, a teammate tells me, hey, Annie, breaks are posted. That means the room assignments for the quarters or semis or final rounds are up on the wall or on Tabroom. Rounds are simple enough to understand. I kind of explained them just now. A ballot is what the judge of your round writes feedback on to give back to you after awards for you to look over. Blocking is the act of orchestrating your movements to your speech. So you've memorized your speech if you're doing interp, for example. Now you have to block your speech, which means you have to block your hand movements, what time you're going to point here, what time you're going to point there. How are you going to use your body to emphasize points and deliver your message to the audience? That's what blocking is. Popping is a specific form of blocking for interp kids who need to switch between multiple characters. So as you're exchanging dialogue between multiple characters, sometimes it will be hard for the judges or competitors to understand when you're switching in between characters. So for example, if I'm impersonating a female character for one of my rounds and I'm switching to a male character, I could try lowering my voice, I could try changing my position or like the way I hold my body in order to convey to the audience that, hey, I changed character now. This is who I'm trying to, this is the line I'm going to deliver for them. And so that's what popping is the changing between multiple characters via body language. And double enters. So speech events are unique in that they usually only last about an hour. So you are able to deliver your speech and then you are able to kind of, after you deliver a speech, usually they last around 10 minutes long. And so after you go in your round, you can go first in your round and finish, and then go to another event that you also signed up for. So I could do OI and POI, which I'll explain later what those are, but I'll do OI and POI. And if I go to one round, I can go first in that round, finish up what I want to do, and then go immediately to my second round without having to wait out the entire hour long. So that just allows for you to do multiple events, because oftentimes going to invites, just doing one event is kind of like, it's fine. That's totally fine if you do one event, but a lot of people choose to double or even triple enter in multiple events in order to get a wide variety of speech in. Okay. So the speech events are also called individual events or IE events, because unlike in debate, you work on your own. Speech events are divided up into three main sections: oratorical interpretation, program oral interpretation, dramatic interpretation, and humorous interpretation. And duo are the interp or interpretation events, also confusingly called the IE events as well. Platform or original events are events that seek to inform, expose, and persuade. This includes events like original oratory, original advocacy, informative, expository or expos, and original prose and poetry. The last section is limited prep events like NX and IX, which are extemporaneous events, and impromptu, or simply IMP. There are other events, but number one, I'm on a time crunch, and number two, you really don't need to know about them unless you think all the events I'm going to list are not appealing to you, which is rare. And number three, most invitationals tend to only offer these events to compete in for speech. So jumping straight in. So POI, HI, DI, OI, and duo are perfect for those who are more inclined towards the performative arts, as they require you to take on a character from a play, book, musical, movie, etc. So first things first, thematic interpretation, or POI or TI stands for program oral interpretation or thematic interpretation. The contestant is to present a program of literary works based upon a theme of his or her choice. Each program will contain 3 or more separate selections of at least 150 words or an entire work from different published works. So you have to memorize you have to hold a manuscript, but reading from your manuscript is optional. Your manuscript will be in a binder, and the binder itself may be used as a prop, which is very important to know, as most speech events do not allow you to use a physical prop. You would have to pantomime and use the power of your imagination to convince the audience of what you're doing. The maximum speaking time is 10 minutes, including your introduction. Sitting, kneeling, and lying on the floor are permitted, but the furniture in the room may not be used. Dramatic interpretation, or DI, are selections are exactly what they are. They're more dramatic in nature. They tend to be sad or just usually sad. They're really really dramatic for a reason, and they're really uh and the selections that you choose may be chosen from published stories, plays, and essays, or poems that are serious in nature. The cutting itself can be from a small portion of a larger work, but it should be able to stand on its own. Again, no more than 150 words may be added for appropriate introductory and or transitional purposes, but they may not change the author's intent. All interp events are you simply taking a piece of work and interpreting it in your own words. You may not actually change the original author's intent, but you can change the way you deliver it, which is the whole point of interpretation. Gestures, pantomime, and singing are acceptable in DI, but it should be used with restraint. The maximum time, again, is 10 minutes, including your introduction. There is no minimum limit, and the presentations must be entirely memorized. Again, sitting, kneeling, and lying on the floor are permitted for dramatic interpretation. Now, oratorical interpretation, or OI. The contestant chooses a published speech delivered originally by a real person. This is the only event which allows material from the internet. This is not meant to be an impersonation. Now, OI is a funny little event because it doesn't require you to take on a character per se from like a play or a book. You technically are still assuming the role of the speaker. So it's similar to platform events in that aspect, but you aren't writing a speech on your own. But you aren't impersonating either. You're interpreting it in your own words. Also, OI is a California-only event, so there are many national circuit invites that do not offer OI as an option to compete in. So be aware of that. It's why most people choose to double enter with OI and their main events, such as like DI or HI or POI or something like that. The interpretation itself should recreate the meaning of the selection through the use of voice, gestures, eye contact, and facial expression. In addition, the student makes a brief introduction of no more than 150 words, again, that highlights the intent of the original speaker and the significance of the speech. All of these speeches are 10 minutes for maximum speaking time, and there are no minimum time limits. Though I do recommend that most of these speeches be at least 7 to 8 minutes. 7 is still a little too short, as it's not enough time to adequately convey all the information that you're supposed to get in a proper rising action, like exposition, rising action, climax, denouement kind of format. Humorous interpretation, or HI, are basically selections chosen from published stories, plays, essays, or poems which are humorous in nature but not slapstick comedy. So you can't necessarily do stand-up comedy because it's not most of the time they don't really tend to tell a story of sorts, and they don't require you to take on a character, if that makes any sense. There are specific rules that are outlined in the CHESA, or California, I'm not sure what the exact organization acronym is, but CHESA is the official speech and debate organization for California itself, and there are rules that dictate exactly where you're allowed to take your sources from. So humorous interpretation is just being really funny and humorous. Yeah. All right. Duo interpretation is the only speech event that allows you to work with a partner. So it's perfect for friends to do together. It's also one of the more popular events in speech and debate as a whole. For example, at James Logan, the final round of duo, that is the top 7 pairs, are competed on stage in the auditorium in front of all the competitors and parents right before the award ceremony. That's how fun watching duo rounds are, and they are super fun to do as well. The 2 contestants must present a selection from published stories, plays, essays, or poems, but they may not combine different pieces of literature as you can do in POI. They can be funny, they can be sad, or they can be a combination of both for duo interpretation. So it's really, really diverse and really fun to watch. Yeah, okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Brief interjection. I don't know if anyone heard me. Maybe my mic wasn't working. Duo's up in the air for this year due to social distancing and all these health-related issues. So if you're interested in doing duo, talk to either me or Annie before putting a lot of time in the event, because for the most part, many of the larger tournaments aren't offering it. So I don't want you to put a bunch of time into something and then not be able to compete with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right, so is it unfrozen now? Good. So I'll be moving on to OO, OA, OPP, and XPOS, which are the platform or original events. The maximum time limit for all these events are, again, 10 minutes with a 30-second grace period. There is no minimum time limit, but the good speeches usually take at least 7 to 8 minutes in order to communicate your idea. 30 judges, I've already said this. Okay, so the ethos, pathos, and logos I mentioned earlier are probably most deliberately used in these platform events, as they are closest to what people normally think public speaking or giving a speech is usually like. So original oratory, the student will present an original speech. The subjects vary considerably, but regardless of the topic, the student's aim is to persuade the audience. Any appropriate subject may be used, but the contestant must be truthful. So non-factual references, especially personal experiences, must be identified as such. The speech must be memorized and delivered extemporaneously. No visual aids are allowed. And a note for original oratory is that a solution is not required. With the platform and original events, and the fact that they allow you to write your own speech from scratch, allows you really diverse, it allows you to tackle very diverse topics. And so it's very good for those of you who are writers out there who really want to have your own voice and present it to your peers. Original advocacy is similar to original oratory in that this speech is an original work of the contestant, but the contestant must solve a current problem by proposing a governmental, legislative, or regulatory change. All specific legislative solutions must reveal the agent of the action, so who's doing the change itself. In original prose and poetry, or OPP, you write and present a piece composed of original prose, poetry, or a combination of prose and poetry. So this event provides an opportunity for creative writers to present their works to an audience. The material can be humorous, dramatic, or a combination of the both. It can be a monologue or a dialogue. The competition in this event is challenging because the material varies so widely. Singing is permitted as well. OPP's strength is that it combines the originality of oratory and the creativity of interpretation together. Expository.
Wait, Annie, quick. Your slides are frozen.
Again?
It says poi, OI, and duo.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Expository. So this speech is to inform and should describe, clarify, illustrate, or define an object, idea, concept, or process. It has to be about something that has happened or is factual. So audio and or visual aids are not required, but most people use them in the form of huge boards with stuff pasted on them, in the form stuff pasted on them on an easel. So it requires more time to prepare, since you not only have to get ready your speech, but your board as well. The maximum speaking time is 10 minutes, including setup and removal. So it has to be very efficient. The speech may be delivered from memory or from notes. Okay. Extemporaneous and impromptu are our limited prep or spontaneous events. So impromptu is where the contestants will enter the room one at a time and draw a slip of paper from the judge. On the slip will be 3 topic choices: a concrete noun, an abstract noun, a current event, or a quotation, or a mix of all 3. And the contestant must choose one of the 3. After drawing the slip of paper, the contestant has 2 minutes, only 2 minutes to prepare prior to speaking their speech. The maximum time for the speech is 5 minutes. There is no minimum time, and time signal should be given to the contestant, so you'll know how to pace yourself. stress is placed on the ability to marshal a variety of ideas on one subject in an organized and focused manner. So there is a structure to impromptu speaking. You don't just kind of like go off and kind of rant for 5 minutes. It's still a structured speech, but it's off the cuff, essentially. And you won't be able to memorize anything. Extemporaneous speaking is similar to impromptu in that prior to the round, the contestants draw 3 topics. They choose one, and instead of 2 minutes to prepare, are given 30 minutes to prepare an appropriate speech on the topic of a significant modern day interest discussed in major national news magazines during the weeks prior to the tournament. So it's kind of like testing you on your knowledge of current events. The maximum speaking time for the speech is 7 minutes. There is no minimum time, and time signals should be given to the contestant. Notes are not allowed. So once you get up there in front to speak your speech to the judge, you are going in completely memorizing your structure and what you want to say. Extemp is divided into 2 subcategories, NX and IX. NX is national extemporaneous speaking, IX is international extemporaneous speaking. And so NX focuses on US news in particular, and IX focuses on global news. This event focuses on international political and economic issues and often includes international relations and conflicts as well. The fun part about limited prep events is that you don't just have to memorize anything in advance. So there's technically no way for you to forget your speech. These events are good for people who like to just get in and get out during tournaments and don't really want to stress over the process of researching and preparing a speech before you get to the tournament. But these events, particularly extemp, require an in-depth knowledge of world affairs and politics. So if you're always caught up on the latest news going on in the US or the world, consider giving extemp or imp a try. So I'm going to pretend to be one of you guys, and I'm going to be saying this little quote outside. So you're going to be like, hey, Annie, okay, I've been thinking about this, but now after seeing all these speech events, I'm not too sure I want to do speech anymore. I really can't talk in front of an audience without completely turning into a nervous wreck. Can I still do speech? So there are, in my experience, very few students who have genuine, it's really going to be an issue every time anxiety about speaking. Most nervous kids either have self-esteem issues, prior bad experiences, weren't prepared enough, or some combination of these, all of which are totally normal parts of being a teenager and a student. But with encouragement and the right classroom attitude of firm, but still kind and nice expectations, I find that most people will eventually come around. And while it might not necessarily be something you'll ever be completely comfortable with doing, the pushback to speech each time fades every single time you give a speech. I want you guys to understand that speech and debate is a safe environment for you guys to practice in and get better, because everyone is learning at the same time. Even me, like after doing it for like 3 to 4 years. The activity is set up in a way that you are able to gradually build confidence by teaching the body that this is not a dangerous situation. We are here to help and improve our speaking skills altogether. Because at the end of the day, that's all what we're here for, right? So now if you come to my speaking mechanisms lecture later that I'll be giving later in the week, you'll learn the basics of speaking well that can be applied to any event you choose to do. So a little ad for that if you want to come. So I'm not sure right now that I'm going to ask, are you guys willing to listen to an example speech that I have prepared or not? I feel like I've been lecturing for a bit, and I feel like it's a good time to kind of.
I have a question. What is this video?
This video is an example speech of Jenny Vaughn's 2013 she was the national champion for original oratory in 2013. And so this is linked to the video that she performs. I was just wondering if anyone wants to watch it. Okay, it seems like people want to, so I'll play it. Hani says, can you also show an example for POI? I'm not sure how an actual POI speech would look like. So if you come to my other lecture, I'll be able to give an example of POI as well. Rachel asks, what resources would we be allowed to use for the 2-minute limited prep events? Nothing. You're literally creating everything from your mind and mind alone. So it's good for people who love have lots of stories to tell that they've never really found a way to express in an outlet. It's good. Impromptu is good for that. So I'm going to play the video then. Hopefully this works.
It's a little bit glitchy.
I came from Vietnam 7 years ago, and once I turned 18, I was able to take the US citizenship test. On the test were 10 questions, assessing what I know about US history and government.
Also, your camera's
Some of the questions were, what did the Civil War do? I answered, free the slaves. What did the Emancipation Proclamation do? Freed the slaves. Oh, and a really tricky one. What did Abraham Lincoln do? Freed the slaves? Then came the writing portion, where I had to make a sentence using the words the, is, and how. To which I responded with, the Emancipation Proclamation is how the slaves were freed. You see, these second chances got me started thinking, there are so many tests out there that we can take over and over again. SAT, ACT, DMV driving test. These second chances are not bad, but the problem is we are conditioning people to rely on multiple opportunities. And this mentality is permeating throughout our society. At school, it's the kid who's always tardy. At home, when we play Monopoly or chess, there will always be someone that says, ooh, can I take that back? Ooh, no. Somewhere along the line, redos have become an expectation, a crutch. So today, we must first see how we continue to give out extra chances. And second, understand the devastating behaviors associated with this problem. Now, a high school in California have come up with a new policy. I like to call it 4 strikes and you're out, where students caught cheating will only be transferred to another school after the 4th offense. But our reliance on a second or more chances has spread from the classroom to the courtroom. 39-year-old professional wrestler Tamara Lynn Sitch was arrested on Tuesday, September 11th for choking her boyfriend. She was released on Wednesday until she was arrested again on Wednesday for choking her boyfriend. But don't worry, you see, the judge released her one more time on Thursday until she was arrested again on Thursday for choking her boyfriend. Now you think the judge would learn and stop giving out these second chances, but no. Breaking news. Within the next 2 weeks, Sitch was arrested 2 more times. That's 5 times in a month for attacking the same person. But as disgraced former South Carolina governor and adulterer, now newly elected US Congressman Mark Sanford stated in his victory speech, I want to acknowledge a God, not just of second chances, but third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, because that is the reality of our shared humanity. He's right about the reality of our second chances, but it's not something we should be thankful for. The problem was that Sanford came to count on them, and when we see it in our leaders, our idols, our teachers, we follow suit. By relying on redos, we fail to see the disastrous effect associated with this behavior. According to Terry Hall from The Intuitive Edge, this is our mentality. There's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it again. Yeah, and Mr. Hall can easily point to Lindsay Lohan because she has been in rehab so many times, the clinic cafeteria named a sandwich after her. It's called the Lindsay Lohan sandwich. Oh, and it comes with a little Coke on the side. But corporate America isn't any better. Philip Crosby, Vice President of ITT Engineering Corporation, points out that businesses can waste up to a third of their revenue on redoing something that wasn't done correctly the first time. Take Apple, for example. When Apple Maps application was first introduced on the iPhone 5 in September 2012, whole towns were missing, gone, vanish. The Statue of Liberty wiped off the face of planet Earth. That's too bad. Because I like the statue. But the worst part is, developers at Apple claimed in an interview with the media technology website CNET that they knew Apple Maps had serious defects, but didn't want to delay the release of the new software last fall. Now, Apple isn't alone here. The "I'll fix it later" mentality has gotten us lost in a false sense of security. A few years ago, a body armor manufacturer, appropriately named Second Chance Body Armor, was discovered to be making defective bulletproof vests. A letter found on company president Richard Davis's computer read, quote, "Continue working as though nothing is wrong until one of our customers is killed or wounded." Since then, policemen in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and California lost their lives when Second Chance Body Armor failed to live up to its name. There's a reason why it's called a second chance and not second chances. Because when it comes to life and death situations, you only get one. In October 2012, a neighbor filed a complaint with the Los Angeles County Department of Family and Children's Services, alerting them that Gabriel Fernandez was being abused by his mother, Pearl. Gabriel told his teacher that his mom would beat him with a belt buckle until he bled, and asked if that was normal. His teacher reported the case to authorities. His therapist filed another complaint when she found the suicide letter from Gabriel. But all their pleas fell on deaf ears. In total, 6 investigations into abuse allegations involving Pearl, and yet Gabriel was never removed from his mother's custody. So just last month, on May 22nd, 2013, Gabriel was taken to the hospital with a broken skull, cracked ribs, bruised skin, and BB gun pellets embedded in his lungs and groin. 2 days later, Gabriel died. He was 8 years old. The people that were supposed to protect the little boy failed him. And by giving Pearl so many chances, Gabriel will never have another one. You see, I'm not trying to say that we should never give someone a second chance. This country was built on them. But when we don't give our best effort the first time and hold out for the next try, we are selling ourselves and all those around us short. Think about it. How many people stay in abusive relationships? How many malpractices need to be overlooked? And how many school shootings must happen before we say enough is enough? The bottom line is, a second chance should just be a second chance. Not a third, not a fourth, not a fifth. We should not rely on the do-overs later in the future, but rather focus on the present opportunities. You know, I am never going to get another chance to speak to you guys in this room, with this audience, with all you amazing speakers. I have one chance, 10 minutes, to convince you guys that this second chance mentality will turn us into a second-rate society. We need to live like it's our last day. So go ahead, make mistakes, ask for help, be a fallible human being. But strive to live your life with purpose. My parents and I moved here for a chance at a new beginning. And I'm making the most out of that opportunity every single day. And on May 23rd, 2013, I became a citizen of the United States. On my first attempt. So while we should always try, even if we fail, we should never fail to try the first time.
Okay, so going back. Oh, okay, hold on, someone. So that was an example of an original oratory. Jenny Vaughn, I'll give you a little bit into her background. She actually only started doing speech and debate that year. For the first time, she was an immigrant, as she said, and she just became an American citizen, I think at that time, I think about 2 months earlier. So Vaughn had not been in the US for very, very long. However, she was able to become the national champion that year. So if Vaughn is an example of doing your best at anything, as long as you try, I emphasize, as long as you try, you'll be able to do probably similar to what Jenny could as well. So that was my lecture. I hope you guys are mildly, at least mildly interested in speech by now. I'm going to stop screen sharing for right now, and I'll take any questions that you guys may have.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you show any more examples, like, of other competitions?
Other competitions or other events in speech?
Other types of speech competitions. Could you show us any other later?
Most of us tend to compete, as I said earlier, in NSDA. And so these are the events that we typically tend to compete in. Are you trying to like ask like different types of events or like just different kinds of competitions? Because this was the National Speech and Debate Tournament, which is the one that I mentioned earlier where thousands of students gather around from the nation in order to compete.
NSDA is the only tournament where videos of the final rounds are recorded and posted online. Kessler, were you asking specifically about other events, videos of other events?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right now I only have enough time because I'm almost up with the hour and I don't want to keep you guys here for too long. I can link you guys to some, I can post some links in the Google Classroom to some other examples of speeches that I found that happen to be recorded. But you can also go on YouTube and search up it on your own. However, I advise most of you guys, if you want to see more examples of speeches, especially in the final rounds, to make an NSDA account, because they have video recordings up from like 1990 something of all the champions in your event that you want to see that they have recorded, available up to watch. So right now I won't be sharing anymore at the moment, unfortunately, but I will be showing a POI as one of you guys commented in the chat, because in my next lecture, if you guys are interested enough to come to that one. So yeah, any more questions? All right, well, if you guys happen to think of anything else, feel free to contact me or email the DHS SAD account. Yeah, I guess everyone is free to go then. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.